As we close off our series today, Heromaker, I felt that there is some storyline going on between Jesus and Peter that is important for us to walk in together because it speaks so much of our own journey. Jesus, this hero maker, and of course our local fisherman, our resident hero option in the life of Peter. And heroes do what other people don't regularly do, and hero makers produce heroes. For some of us today, you lead at work, you lead at home, there's all kinds of serving opportunities, and you are often the leader, and at other times you are the follower. And learning from this story is very helpful for us, no matter what side of the coin you see yourself. I want you to turn to the person beside you, and I want you to encourage them today on Thanksgiving, and I want you to say to them, look them in the eye and say, I think you have what it takes to be a hero maker. I want you to just try that. Go ahead, quickly. We all love each other. Say, I think you have. Isn't that great? We just pray and go home. We're actually going to find out. Now, I think it's important that we always tell the truth. I think that's important. Being a person who enjoys cooking and the wonderful union between butter and a cast iron pan and a piece of fish. I know it's early, but I have found my way to be able to enjoy fishing without getting cold, making sure that I catch something, and I get to watch these amazing fishing shows and dream. And I don't know what's happened. I've been doing a bit of workout for my hip, and I like mindless TV in the background, and it seems that these fishing or hunting shows is working for me. And then I realized this week, I think I've got a problem. You find yourself doing something, and you're going, wait a sec, I think you're over the line. I'm watching them catch an albacore tuna, like by the hundreds. And I don't even know much about that fish. And then I started thinking about recipes. Then I started thinking about going fishing. Then I started to think, where can I get that fish? And then I called Co-op. And then I'm having a beautiful conversation with the fish master at Co-op. Yellowfin, albacore, tuna. And then I realized, I think I need to find something else to watch on TV. I'm over the line. Fishing. Here we have this text in Mark 1, 14 to 20, after Jesus was put in prison, after John was put in prison, Jesus went into Galilee proclaiming the good news of God. The time has come, he said. The kingdom of God has come near. Repent and believe the good news. As Jesus walked beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon and his brother Andrew casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. Come follow me, Jesus said, and I will send you out to fish for people. And at once they left their nets, they followed him. And when he had gone a little further, he saw James, the son of Zebedee, and his brother, John in the boat, preparing their nets. Without delay, he called them, and they left their father Zebedee in the boat with the hired men, and they followed him. Boy, fishermen being pulled in by Jesus. This morning, I want to spend a few moments on understanding this special relationship, particular between Jesus and between Peter. We see that the master approaches and he pulls this group together. But this is the very beginning steps where Peter's calling, his life as a disciple, becomes very unique. And Peter's a great character for us, and we're going to learn a little bit more about his life. But we know that this is his first steps. We know there's a lot of mistakes in the middle of it, lots of failure, lots of stress points, lots of frustration. And we know the end result that comes later in Acts. Peter's world becomes a whole lot larger as he steps into this business of considering becoming a hero that he didn't know, Jesus, to make him something he never dreamed of. We have to go through a few little basic points because we got to understand that you got to find the fishermen. There's something about this group of collection that Jesus shows us how to do it. Jesus finds this group. Here they are in front of him, fishermen, following their local trade, maybe in hopes of their own Netflix show or series, because they're just that good and they're just that interesting. You see, hero making is a lot like fishing. To be successful, you need to go where the fish are. And this is the Jesus way. If you follow his storylines, always tracking down some potential people in the middle of their journey and the middle of his journey. Interruptions all over the place, wherever he is and wherever they are. You see, reaching out to others is rarely a scheduled event. It's just a way of doing life. I know there's times where we feel something, maybe it's Christmas or prior to Christmas, and we want to do something for the poor, the benevolent. But I think it's something we should be in practice all the time, ready for interruption or the possibility of turning someone's life into becoming a hero. And that makes us a hero maker. It's interesting that when Jesus quickly lays out this relationship, he lays the parameters really fast when he meets Peter. He declares who he is. He is the teacher, and Peter will be the student. He lays out the fact that I am going to change you. Teacher, student, potential hero maker. Jesus always calls us to a new life. One of our biggest challenges in this story is this whole comprehension around dropping what you're doing and shifting gears to what Jesus sees that you can do as you follow him. Here we have two skilled people in their trade, doing what they normally would do on a regular day. And now this invitation to follow stops them. They leave everything and they move on. Our faith and our faith journey is never an addition. And this is why it's complicated for us. Something happens in our faith story and we try to add it on. We try to do business as usual with a little bit of gospel on the side. And it's very complicated. In fact, it just doesn't work because our heart and our passion and our growth starts to interfere with the way that we thought we were going to live life. And that's what it looks like as we become heroes or as we are hero making. There's a few practices that are very simple for us when we look at the idea of hero making. And I want to give them to you today. Number one, really easy. You have to recognize first that you have something to offer if you are going to be a hero maker. This was Jesus. He says to Peter, I will make you a fisher of men. That pulls people away. That makes people want to follow. If you really don't believe that you can make a difference in someone's life, then why would you ever invite them to join you on the journey? But you have to believe that you have something to offer, to bring change, to help, to resource, to watch something happen in the person that you're invited into this journey. This is why our communion time is always so powerful. You see, we all have to be a part of this surprising grace of Jesus. We gather around the table, equal. All of us on the journey, as Adam said. All of us seeing our own broken parts, but all moving forward towards what God planned for us. I think that one of our biggest challenges is that we are told or we feel that we're not adequate. We don't have what it takes. One day when I get to a certain location in my faith journey, I'll have what it takes, and then I will consider becoming a hero or a hero maker. But today is that day. At whatever point you find yourself, realize you have something to give. At whatever age of life, you have something to give. At whatever stage of life, you have something to give. The second thing that's kind of cool, you got to look for some followers. And in this case, Jesus went after Peter and his brothers and some group of fishermen as Jesus walked beside the Sea of Galilee. Well, you got to be on the lookout for people that might want to join you on the journey. Being present, having interests outside of life and just work can always lead to more influence. And of course, finding fishermen. Do you know this is one of the greatest challenges that we still face today in church world? We face it as pastors, we face it as leaders, we face it as people that participate in gospel. It's a tough balance. You see, because when we grew up in church, those of us that did, you had to leave the world. You had to have nothing to do with the world. You had to look weird so the world knew who you were. You were a weird person. That's what we had to do. And then all of a sudden there was this disconnect, this decoupling away from those who need faith. And it's always been a struggle. But when you look at how Jesus did it, he was always in the world, but he was always doing the work of the gospel while he was in the world. Sometimes it's our common careers. It's just the people we meet at work, and that's a great thing. And we call that circles of influence, people that are around you. But there's also something that is fascinating, which is these divine connections or opportunities that God just uses. And I think they're amazing how they come together for us and in our lives. I really believe this. God places people around us for us. God places people around us for us. It was hilarious. We were in Kelowna for a few days on our holiday. And Heather's out having a walk in the morning with the kids, and she comes back and she tells me she met this most beautiful senior lady in her 80s, Donna. Donna's got a beautiful home right on the water. She's giving away apricots for free. That's the kind of Jesus follower Don is. Heather comes back. What a wonderful lady. Her and her husband built the home. Heather got the whole download. Built the home in the 70s. Told her how she did it because she was married to a contractor from Calgary. I said, Heather, I know Donna. I did her husband's funeral. And I'm going over because I'm the full deal pastor. I take care of the funeral and I show up at your summer home. So I did. I walked in. I said, Donna, I'm the full meal deal. I'm here. She goes, what? Here we are, parked right beside her. Beautiful moment. Had some time to spend with her and her daughter-in-law while they enjoyed their rest there. You see, there's these connection points that are just radical. And the third part that we have to lay as a foundation is this. And you're not going to like this one, but just bear with me as we walk through it. Jesus did it. It's invitation. I know some of you, that is an awful thing to do. It's the come follow me principle. People need to be invited. People actually like to be invited. And I know, here's the hard part. You think you're really close and you have these great friends until you ask something of them. And then they say, yeah, we're not that close. It's hard, isn't it, right? Like, hey, would you ever like to? Yeah, no, actually, no. With you? No, actually not. And you're going, boy, I thought we were really close. This whole invitation can be very unsettling. But this is what Jesus said we are called to do. We are to invite. As we walk in relationship, we make connections with people, we invite. Man, I'm reaching out to a guy right now. I had to pick up a little part for my pool table, and we got chatting when I went to his house and saw what I needed at his house. I looked down the hall, and I went, wow, you have more autographed hockey jerseys than any man I have ever met. You must have a good marriage. And his wife from a room upstairs said, you tell him! Then we started talking about divorce. Then we started talking about their history. Then we started talking about some pain in their life. And then they said, what do you do? I said, I'm a professional pool player. I'm traveling around Calgary right now. I said, I'm a pastor. And then I got a tour of his jersey collection. And then when we were done, I couldn't help myself. I said, do you go to church? They said, no. I said, would you come to church? They said, yes. You see, invitation is powerful. And it's got to feel right, but we got to do it. John Maxwell says it this way: if you think you're leading but no one is following, then you're actually only taking a walk. I would say it this way: if you are not inviting people into the gospel story, then I'm not sure we're really doing the gospel. This is how we change the world, by changing others. Now listen, Friday night, some of you parents, you're incredible. We've got some new things cooking, and I'm so proud of our youth department. But Friday night was a scavenger hunt of parents. We had small groups going all over the city. Those of you with multiple kids like us, one drop off here, hosting a home. We left our house open, and we came back, and I'm telling you, our house has never been more beautiful. We had gifts. We had food. It was just unbelievable. Kids all over the place, because we believe in the gospel message. We believe in mentoring our kids in learning scripture and development together. Small groups, first time, Friday night, all over the city. Man, if you're not a part of that with your teenagers, get them in. It's amazing. Following Jesus leads us in a way to become heroes and to become hero makers. Now, Jesus had some unique ways of how he did it. This whole idea of inner circle hero training. If you are in the hero making business, you need to let your heroes into the inner circle on occasion. And if you are becoming a hero, you need to take advantage of what we call the inner circle. Now, as a disciple, Peter early on gets some huge privileges because for whatever reason, Peter, James, and John, they were in the inner circle. And here's Peter getting a part of stuff that you just don't get your first year of discipling. He gets these special tickets, events that he gets to go to. Big stories, big moments. All of a sudden, Jairus' daughter, she's dying. Jesus is there and he says, don't worry about it. But an interesting line says, don't be afraid, just believe. And then the line in the text says, he did not let anyone follow him except Peter, James, and John. This intimate miracle, for whatever reason, Jesus said, I got to bring my closest. I got to bring those ones I'm hero making into this. They have to be a part of it. There's something about the inner circle and the learning that goes on in there. Oh, we all love the inner circle. I know some of you are way more spiritual than me, and you don't care. But doesn't that kind of feel good? We're invited into the inner circle. Boss brings you in for a little private meeting, telling you how great you are. Come on, Jerry, you're so amazing. Now, don't share this with the rest of the team, Jerry. You know, you feel big going out the door. And you find out at the water cooler, the coffee pot, everybody else knows you're not that big. Something about that inner circle. Hero making is all about relationship. Getting closer, walking together. Jesus calls us to move forward in the busyness of what we're doing. Some of you, this whole idea of relationship and leadership and followership is the activity of how it works. He's also a part of these one-on-one moments with Jesus. It's just him and Peter. And we know that some of these moments are pretty difficult for him. He drops the ball a lot. Peter is suddenly, Jesus takes a strip off him because he's sharing about what he's got to do. I got to come, I got to die. And Peter lets him know that that's just not how it's going to work out. And that doesn't go well. And then there's the walking on the water. That's an incredible movement of faith. But of course, we see that he almost drowns. And then always boasting about how close he is to Jesus. So close, yet completely drops the ball and throws Jesus under the bus when a little girl asks him about his connection to Christ. First out of the boat, first in the water. Interesting. But these intimate moments that are marked in the text for us to notice. You see, hero making is hard work. There's a reason why it doesn't happen automatically, because it's hard work. Listening to David, this whole entire series, I just kept thinking it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. I can't wrap up and not tell you it's a lot of work. Hero making a lot of work because there's going to be disappointment. There's moments when the person you were leading, the group that you were leading, the ideas you have, there's moments in our parenting that, boy, it's just a lot of work because we have to keep doing the same stuff over and over and keep attempting over and over. But hero makers have to be above. They have to be bigger. They have to be more mature. And just like Jesus, they can't be surprised by failure. And even when there's a failure, we never let it derail what we see in the person we're leading. And that's the hardest part. We can't shift gears because they fail. Maybe this is the best way to help you understand it. Even our superheroes get tired because it's hard. I love this. Now, I know Marvel wouldn't celebrate this very great and it won't sell in the movie theaters, but wow, they just get a little tired after the busyness of what they are doing. Jesus understood the idea of hero making. He understood the fact that he would be let down. None of what Peter was going to do would catch Jesus by surprise. Jesus understood. None of the world and the things that happen around us catch us off or by surprise because we look further down the road. Peter found out that to become a hero, there would be lots of moments of missing the mark, failing, and of course disappointment. But Peter's failure would humble him. Peter's failure would give him more compassion and make him a better leader. And the other disciples would be comforted that in that failure, that they would see a courageous leader rise and learn what it's like to be a hero. When we are the hero maker, we ask things from a higher level. We see things from a different vantage point. And Jesus questions Peter in the text when we read, when he asks him about his love for him. And when Peter had finished eating, Jesus said, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? Jesus asked this question. And finally, after 3 times, Peter says, Jesus, Lord, you know that I love you. Feed my lambs, Jesus says. But we know in the context of Scripture, there's 2 different versions of love. Jesus is asking for a more intimate love. How big is your love? Is it this type of love? And Peter says, yes, we're like buddies. We're like pals. Of course, I'll be there for you, which is a lower tiered love, agape, filio. But suddenly we see that there's a difference. The leader's asking of more. The hero is offering to do less. It sounds the same, but it's different. No surprise that the love of the hero maker is always going to be more deeper. If you're going to be a hero maker, you will always be giving more, leading heavier, and doing more than you may get in return. Teachers always give more than learners. Moms and dads are always giving more to their kids, even though they may or may not understand. But that's what hero makers do. Hero makers have to be above, bigger, more mature, just like Jesus. He's never surprised by Peter's failure, and he never lets it derail the goal and the vision of what he can become. I don't know if you know this, but hero making can actually change your name. The question I have for you today is, when you find yourself in your transitions of success, you've got a big promotion, everything has changed, you've got your name on the wall, what is the first thing that you do for yourself to exercise this excitement, change, and your success? What do? New car? I'm finally trading up to the car I've always dreamed of. I've got my promotion. I am now at the top. New wardrobe? Oh, some of you just stop right there. You really enjoyed church this morning. Oh, yes. Brand new wardrobe. Haircut? How about a new neighborhood? Time to get out of this place. Don't like those people anyways. What about the in-laws? Now that I'm a big deal, I better not go there. Let's stay away from that one. Jesus changed Peter's name from Simon, which means weed, withering weed. Boy, that's a relevant word for today, isn't it? Better go on from that little skip there. He changes his name to Rock. Something that can be a foundation, a rock, a platform to be built on. Jesus said, because of what I see in you, your name will change. Now, because I love you guys, you know I had to bring you something special on Thanksgiving. Other guys are great. There's better pastors than me in the city, but nobody loves their church like I do. So I brought you a little treat today. This little treat. Some of you don't like your name. I hear you. You introduce yourself and go, it's an old name. That's kind of a dated name. It's not the name you would have picked. You didn't have a chance anyways. Now, there was years when I don't think it matters. I remember in the earlier day, my parents would say, he looked like us, so you just name him. Hey, looks like Uncle Bill. Let's call him Bill. We're that. And then in our era of kids, oh my Lord, all we did was argue about names. We made up names. We went through the alphabet. We did naming books. Oh, but I'm here to tell you today, some of your parents got it right. And I'm going to prove it to you. You're going to go home today and say, man, my mom and dad really got it right. How about Dill Pickle? Pterodactyl is always an excellent name for your daughter at the altar. Wow, there's a lot of complication. I love this. Batman has been Superman. And then lastly, Bud Light. I can't believe you even get that joke. I don't get it, but it's interesting. It's Bud Light. See, the life of a hero maker is such a profound influence on our heroes that it's time for a name change. Suddenly, in hero making, the hero starts understanding that he has a different future. He has a different value, a different opportunity, and they start to grasp the old ways and letting them go, and they start to understand these new ways of what they can become, and they start to understand that I have potential. I am no longer Simon, the witherer, the weed, the person that bounces all around. I'm going to be this rock. I'm going to be something that can be counted on, built upon. They have an understanding of their potential, and they say their name with confidence. I want to leave you with this today. The gospel is the hope for hero making. The gospel matters because it's the connection we have between what God always intended and what he sees. And as a church, we need to be the hub for these amazing transformational stories. Jesus himself said it in Luke, I have come to preach the good news to the poor, freedom to those that are in captivity, to bring sight to the blind, and to set the oppressed free. Now that is the task of a hero maker. That's a hero. I've been hanging around with a guy named John. John painted everything you see at the back. He's an amazing guy. He'd scare you. He's got more tattoos. He's just terrifying. He's a big, muscly guy, and he's a good friend. And you know what he's doing right now? He's working for 3 years. We had a coffee a couple weeks ago, and I didn't know this because I'm learning about global poverty and struggles in the world that are so outside of our own understanding. But when you go to prison in Ethiopia as a dad, your whole family goes with you because your wife can't sustain by herself, and obviously the kids can't be left alone. I texted him last night. He's getting his hip done. He's down in the States. And I said, tell me again what you were. He's been 3 years trying to push and push, working with the government. Because when you're in the prison, the whole family goes. What chance do you have in changing a kid's life that all he knows from birth is prison and prisoners? I can tell you, 0. I said, John, how far you gotten so far? Because he's had to rewrite the plan a couple times. He said, presently right now, we have 27 families that we have moved within the prison, but outside in another building, that they are preaching, sharing gospel, loving, and educating. 27 families, and 7 on top of that of orphan kids. I said, wow, it's incredible. It's just started, brand new, fresh idea. You see, there's something about the gospel that changes future and changes people's life. Brilliant business goals, academics. We are praying for success in your business. We want to see prosperity happen in our congregation. But remember that in the middle of all the blessing of the great things you're doing, your brilliance, your mind, your companies, and all the success, make sure that the end zone of your plans is the gospel. Jesus calls this with Peter, and he's still calling people today. I want to end on this note. Peter is calling people today. Jesus is calling people today. There's this movement as we move forward that we start to see that God is calling people because of this beautiful work of the gospel. You know, as a young boy, I wanted to be called. I wanted to be called, but you see, my church culture, the pastor did the calling. The preacher did the calling. It wasn't God. So I waited. 10 years old, 11 years old, 12 years old, and often other people were called. Often other people were called out, and I was always missed. Always missed. It's interesting in the moment when we see these things happen and unfold that I started to realize maybe I don't have what it takes. I'm not that way, and I don't fit the way that maybe that the typical calling takes place. And so many of you here today, you wrestle that, just like I did. You know, I'm not at that certain place, or I haven't got what everyone else has. And so often we judge. We look at the stage and we see Heather leading and singing, and we see David in his academics, Adam in his wordsmithing, and we go, I could never do that. But God still calls. And thank God that Jesus and his reckless love, his relentless push, never let up the throttle. He chased and chased and chased. And one day, I heard him call me. It didn't come through the preacher. It didn't come through my grandmother. It didn't come any other way. It came directly through God to move forward. But the gospel, it always brings hope. For every one of you here today, there's a calling, there's a movement, there's a progression that you're being called into today. I want us to close. And I want you to hear a song. It's not the normal way we close. But there's something in gospel that when we sit and we listen as it unfolds in our own lives, this whole idea of hero making, this whole idea of what we can become. You see, heroes never really leave us because we become like them. When I was writing the message, I was continually drawn back to this special relationship of such a broken Peter and such a great success, but all because of this amazing relationship with Jesus. When we look at Jesus' death, there's not a lot of context to understand where the disciples were. And I thought of when somebody radically changes your life and then they're gone, it's a very, very big adjustment. And Luke says this, but all who knew him, they stood at a distance watching these things, speaking of the death of Jesus. How did Peter feel when this person who took him under his wing and transformed his life, changed him? He was broken, but he knew that because of this hero maker, his life was completely transformed. I want you to sit quietly and when you hear the words of this song, that our heroes and those who make us, they're never gone. They're never gone from us. But we become like